A double-barreled detective story by Mark Twain. Part 1, Chapter 3, Extracts from Letters to the Mother. Denver, April the 3rd, 1897. I have now been living several days in the same hotel with Jacob Fuller. I have his scent. I could track him through 10 divisions of infantry and find him. I have often been near him and heard him talk. He owns a good mine and has a fair income from it, but he is not rich. He learned mining in a good way by working at it for wages. He is a cheerful creature, and his 43 years sit lightly upon him. He could pass for a younger man, say 36 or 37. He has never married again, passes himself off for a widower. He stands well, is liked, is popular, and has many friends. Even I feel a drawing toward him, the paternal blood in me making its claim. How blind and unreasoning and arbitrary are some of the laws of nature, the most of them, in fact. My task is become hard now, you realize it? You comprehend and make allowances, and the fire of it has cooled, more than I like to confess to myself. But I will carry it out. Even with the pleasure paled, the duty remains, and I will not spare him. And for my help, a sharp resentment rises in me when I reflect that he who committed that odious crime is the only one who has not suffered by it. The lesson of it has manifestly reformed his character, and in the change he is happy. He, the guilty party, is absolved from all suffering. You, the innocent, are borne down with it. But be comforted. He shall harvest his share. Silver Gulch, May the 19th. I placarded form number 1 at midnight of April the 3rd. An hour later, I slipped form number 2 under his chamber door, notifying him to leave Denver at or before 11:50 the night of the 14th. Some late bird of a reporter stole one of my placards, then hunted the town over and found the other one, and stole that. In this manner he accomplished what the profession call a scoop. That is, he got a valuable item and saw to it that no other paper got it. And so his paper, the principal one in the town, had it in glaring type on the editorial page in the morning, followed by a Vesuvian opinion of our wretch, a column long, which wound up by adding $1,000 to our reward on the paper's account. The journal out there know how to do the noble thing when there's business in it. At breakfast, I occupied my usual seat, selected because it afforded a view of Papa Fuller's face, and was near enough for me to hear the talk that went on at his table. 75 or 100 people were in the room, and all discussing that item and saying they hoped the seeker would find that rascal and remove the pollution of his presence from the town with a rail or a bullet or something. When Fuller came in, he had the notice to leave folded up in one hand and the newspaper in the other, and it gave me more than half a pang to see him. His cheerfulness was all gone, and he looked old and pinched and ashy. And then, only think of the things he had to listen to. Mamma, he heard his own unsuspecting friends describe him with epithets and characterizations drawn from the very dictionaries and phrase books of Satan's own authorized editions down below. And more than that, he had to agree with the verdicts and applaud them. His applause tasted bitter in his mouth, though he could not disguise that from me, and it was observable that his appetite was gone. He only nibbled. He couldn't eat. Finally, a man said, "It is quite likely that that relative is in the room and hearing what this town thinks of that unspeakable scoundrel. I hope so." Ah, dear, it was pitiful the way Fuller winced and glanced around scared. He couldn't endure any more and got up and left. During several days he gave out that he had bought a mine in Mexico and wanted to sell out and go down there as soon as he could, and give the property his personal attention. He played his cards well, said he would take $40,000, a quarter in cash, the rest in safe notes, but that as he greatly needed money on account of his new purchase, he would diminish his terms for a cash in full. He sold out for $30,000. And then, what do you think he did? He asked for greenbacks and took them, saying the man in Mexico was a New Englander with a head full of crotchets and preferred greenbacks to gold or drafts. People thought it queer, since a draft on New York could produce greenbacks quite conveniently. There was talk of this odd thing, but only for a day, that is as long as any topic lasts, in Denver. I was watching all the time. As soon as the sale was completed and the money paid, which was on the 11th, I began to stick to Fuller's track without dropping it for a moment. That night, no, 12th, for it was a little past midnight, I tracked him to his room, which was 4 doors from mine in the same hall. Then I went back and put on my muddy day-laborer disguise, darkened my complexion, and sat down in my room in the gloom, with a gripsack handy, with a change in it, and my door ajar. For I suspected that the bird would take wing now. In half an hour, an old woman passed by carrying a grip. I caught the familiar whiff and followed with my grip, for it was Fuller. He left the hotel by a side entrance, and at the corner he turned up an unfrequented street and walked 3 blocks in a light rain and a heavy darkness, and got into a 2-horse hack, which, of course, was waiting for him by appointment. I took a seat, uninvited, on the trunk platform behind, and we drove briskly off. We drove 10 miles, and the hack stopped at a way station and was discharged. Fuller got out and took a seat on a barrow under the awning as far as he could get from the light. I went inside and watched the ticket office. Fuller bought no ticket. I bought none. Presently the train came along, and he boarded a car. I entered the same car at the other end, and came down the aisle and took the seat behind him. When he paid the conductor and named his objective point, I dropped back several seats while the conductor was changing a bill, and when he came to me, I paid to the same place, about 100 miles westward. From that time, for a week on, he led me a dance. He travelled here and there and yonder, always on a general westward trend, but he was not a woman after the first day. He was a labourer, like myself, and wore bushy false whiskers. His outfit was perfect, and he could do the character without thinking about it, for he had served the trade for wages. His nearest friend could not have recognized him. At last he located himself here, the obscurest little mountain camp in Montana. He has a shanty and goes out prospecting daily, is gone all day, and avoids society. I am living at a miner's boarding house, and it is an awful place. The bunks, the food, the dirt, everything. We have been here 4 weeks, and in that time I have seen him but once, but every night I go over his track and post myself. As soon as he engaged a shanty, here I went to a town 50 miles away and telegraphed that Denver hotel to keep my baggage till I should send for it. I need nothing here but a change of army shirts, and I brought that with me. Silver Gulch, June the 12th. The Denver episode has never found its way here, I think. I know the most of the men in camp, and they have never referred to it, at least in my hearing. Fuller doubtless feels quite safe in these conditions. He has located a claim 2 miles away in an out-of-the-way place in the mountains. It promises very well, and he is working it diligently. But the change in him. He never smiles, and he keeps quite to himself, consorting with no one. He who was so fond of company and so cheery only 2 months ago. I have seen him passing along several times recently, drooping, forlorn, the spring gone from his step, a pathetic figure. He calls himself David Wilson. I can trust him to remain here until we disturb him. Since you insist, I will banish him again, but I do not see how he can be unhappier than he already is. I will go back to Denver and treat myself to a little season of comfort and edible food and endurable beds and bodily decency. Then I will fetch my things and notify poor Papa Wilson to move on. Denver, June the 19th. They miss him here. They all hope he is prospering in Mexico, and they do not say it just with their mouths, but out of their hearts. You know, you can always tell. I am loitering here over long, I confess it. But if you were in my place, you would have charity for me. Yes, I know what you will say, and you are right. If I were in your place and carried your scalding memories in my heart, I will take the night train back tomorrow. Denver, June the 20th. God forgive us, Mother. We are hunting the wrong man. I have not slept any all night. I am now awaiting at dawn for the morning train, and how the minutes drag, how they drag! This Jacob Fuller is a cousin of the guilty one. How stupid we have been not to reflect that the guilty one would never again wear his own name after that fiendish deed. The Denver Fuller is 4 years younger than the other one. He came here, a young widower, in 79, aged 21, a year before you were married, and the documents to prove it are innumerable. Last night I talked with familiar friends of his who have known him from the day of his arrival. I said nothing, but a few days from now I will land him in his town again with the loss upon his mind made good, and there will be a banquet and a torchlight procession, and there will not be any expense on anybody but me. Do you call this gush? I am only a boy, as you well know. It is my privilege. By and by I shall not be a boy any more. So that was for today. Bye-bye. Till next time with more letters to the mother.